Hi everybody. Well, this is a very exciting day because I am driving an all-new 2023 Mazda CX-50. And I'm not in my usual spot. I'm on a trip with Mazda in Southern California, getting a feel for this brand new car. Now, something important to know, this is not a replacement for the Mazda CX-5. Rather, it's a North American only vehicle that Mazda is building in addition to the CX-5. And while the two vehicles are basically the same size, this is the bigger one of the two and is kind of going in a different direction in terms of ruggedness, its off-roading capability, its towing capacity, those types of things. Now, I'm in one of the top versions of this Mazda CX-50, and it's actually one of 10 different trims for this car. Among those 10 trims are two different engines. There's the naturally aspirated 2.5 liter engine that makes 187 horsepower and 186 pound-feet of torque, and this turbocharged 2.5 liter, which, depending on which fuel you put in, makes up to 256 horsepower and 320 pound-feet of torque. Yes, that is a good, healthy number. Now, those horsepower numbers do go down if you instead put regular fuel in this car, but Mazda assures me the car will run completely fine on regular gas. It just won't make quite as much power. There are 6 different trims that use the naturally aspirated 2.5 liter engine, and I'll put those up on the screen right now along with their prices. And there are 4 trims with this turbocharged engine, and I'll put those up on the screen as well. Now, this is the third of those 4 trims, but it's the top that you can get at the moment because the 4th trim, which is called the Meridian, isn't coming out until later this year. And that one is a little bit more catered to people that are into off-roading, adventure activities, and those types of things. It comes with an 18-inch wheel and all-terrain tires, which is going to hurt your fuel economy a little bit, but give you better traction off the pavement, and some other graphics and details to make it visually stand out as well. So if you want, you can kind of think of this model as the top trim of what's available today, or the top trim of the on-road friendly versions of this brand new Mazda CX-50. Regardless of which engine you get, or in fact which trim you get, you do get the same 6-speed automatic transmission, which, yes, is a lower number than we're used to hearing with automatic transmissions these days, but Mazda claims that the engine is plenty flexible to use these 6 gears and not need more, and that there's benefits to the driving dynamics because you have to worry about shifting less often. Also, let's just be glad that there's no CVTs here. The other thing about the powertrain, regardless of which trim you get, is that it will be all-wheel drive. Every single Mazda CX-50 is all-wheel drive. And since we have the more powerful turbocharged engine, and because every single one is all-wheel drive, I'm very curious to see how well this thing accelerates. Let me show you that right now. Okay, I've now got the Mazda CX-50 in sport mode. I've got a nice flat piece of road in front of me, coming to a complete stop. Bit of brake torque. And off we go. Nice little spin of the tires, good thrust back in. Yeah, we get those early shifts. It's shifting around 5,500 RPM, but we've got good scoot here. Wow. We're talking about a fairly large compact SUV, but we're also talking about 320 pound-feet of torque and 256 horsepower. So that is very, very healthy acceleration, despite the fact that this thing really likes to shift early. So we were getting shifts right around 5,500 RPM. And even then, you could feel the acceleration fall off just a little bit as it was shifting. So the Mazda turbo engine really likes to make its power early, but not necessarily hold it to the higher revs. Having the automatic transmission shields you from that a little bit. The shifts aren't super fast, but they're certainly not slow either, and overall acceleration is very potent. And I have to say, that is an interesting and pleasant noise coming from the exhaust. Not what I was expecting, but certainly not bad. And despite this not being the usual roads that I use in my usual spot, there is a chance to show you how well this car handles. Let me show you that right now. Okay, back in sport mode again. I have what looks to be on the map a nice curvy road. So this car has something called G-vectoring control, which is this system. It uses the stability control system to apply the brakes onto the front end to kind of get the front end to bite just a little bit, and that actually helps with turn-in response. And Mazda claims it's done in a subtle enough way that the driver doesn't feel it, the driver just feels good turn-in response. And so far on the driving I've done, that's been exactly the case. But now that we've come upon this properly curvy road, that'll be the real test of that. Steering weight is just a little bit on the light side. I would like just a little bit more weight in the steering for a drive like this. Mazda says that with their drive modes, as opposed to making the car feel different, they actually try to make the car feel the same in different driving conditions. And for me personally, I wish that that meant heavier steering across the board. Also, you might be hearing that it tends to stay in a lower gear, so you have more revs to work with to pull out of corners nicely. What they try to do, Mazda says, is have the car shift as seldomly as possible when you're in a sporty driving mode. So you'll tend to stay in lower gears, higher revs, and if you're in a big braking zone, it'll be quick to downshift to keep you in those higher revs. So from like a fundamental physics point of view, this is not what you want to start with. You've got an SUV with higher center of gravity, it's got more than 8 inches of ground clearance, and it is inherently a front-wheel drive setup, even though this is an all-wheel drive vehicle. But I remember driving the Mazda 3 and being a little disappointed with the fundamental layout of the suspension because it had a fixed rear axle, a rigid rear axle, and yet despite that, it drove incredibly well. Mazda has a way of doing that, so even if the fundamental components don't seem like the right place to start, you could still have a really good time. And this is also the case in this Mazda. It has good feel. So there's good control of the body. You do get some body roll, but it's certainly not excessive. And you're never underdamped, and it feels good, and it's not harsh at the same time. So it's a really good balance. And I'm doing all of this with the stability control completely on. So there's a nice allowance to let the car slide just a little bit before intervening, and I like that as well. Obviously, this car does understeer. You lose the front axle before the rear, but balance is just fine. Really, for a car like this, balance is just fine. Now, if I were in a mid-engine supercar, I might be a little less happy with the balance, but so now we're going downhill. Test the brakes a little more. Brake feel has been strong so far. Wow. Yeah, I mean, the response, the feel is really strong. For the category of vehicle we're in, it's really strong. That was fun. I enjoyed myself. I'm in a compact crossover SUV, not even a premium compact crossover SUV, and I really enjoyed myself. You know, it's definitely an SUV. You have SUV weight, you have SUV weight distribution. You've got a lot of weight on the front axle, so that front end definitely gives up first. But it's enjoyable and it's predictable. The whole car works really well as a cohesive unit, and that's really important. And as an enthusiast, I just have to point that out and respect that because I just really love that. Great car. And of course, it's not all acceleration and handling, especially in a compact SUV. Let me show you what this thing is like on the interstate. And I'm actually not going to cut to anything because I'm on the interstate right now. I'm on a very nice interstate that is right next to the Pacific Ocean. There might be moments that you see the Pacific Ocean. I'm certainly catching glimpses when I can. But I have to tell you that I'm pleasantly surprised that despite only having a 6-speed transmission, we are currently going 75 miles an hour and just turning 2,100 RPM. That is a very pleasant surprise in terms of ratio range, despite having 2, 3, even 4 fewer gears than other cars in this class. Wind noise is nicely isolated in this cabin. In fact, it's even nicer than I expected, and so it's perfectly pleasant to have conversations at a normal volume in here. Road noise is well isolated as well, and the ride is on the firm side, but still very comfortable in my opinion. And I think Mazda is among the best of giving you a firmer ride that gives you much better handling, but still plenty comfortable enough to absorb bumps and heaves and things in the road. Now, if you live in a really heavily pockmarked area, maybe you might want something a little bit softer, but it's only just a little bit if that's the case. Also, if you did get one of the lower trim versions, there is a 17-inch wheel instead of this 20-inch wheel, and that would probably help absorb some of the bumps a little better as well. One quick point I want to make as well, I do also quite like these seats. They're nice and comfortable. I do very much like the fact that I have lumbar support in addition to the usual adjustments. They are SUV seats, so plenty comfortable, but they are also supportive, and I really like that. And yes, this Mazda does come with adaptive cruise control, and I'm using it right now, and it works just fine. And it does have some other safety systems, and I'll go ahead and put those on the screen right now as well. But one thing that Mazda really focuses on that I really appreciate is that they really try to work hard to give the driver a really good feel for the car. So it's not just driver assist systems to help intervene when something happens, but just a more cohesive feel of the car in general, so that you have more control in general and just have more confidence to maneuver around any circumstances that come up in general. And since I'm talking about the car in general, this would be as good a time as any to look around and inside the CX-50. Let me pull over and show you that right now. Check it out, guys. This is the all-new 2023 Mazda CX-50. And this particular one is the 2.5 liter turbo premium plus model, which is pretty much the top of the line. And it is painted in a $395 optional paint called Polymetal Gray. Looking at the car in profile, it definitely has the classic two-box SUV shape, but I think they did a good job. I like how the fenders kind of flare out here. These plastic parts I'm kind of lukewarm about, but I think the fact that it flares out on its own is good. I also like the similar treatment that they gave in the rear here, as well as these polished metal roof rails right here. Also, if you look up, this is the very first Mazda to have a panoramic moonroof, and I'll show you that from the inside as well. Looking at the front, you see that we've been on the road a bit already and that I've hit some bugs, but you can also see that it's got the latest Mazda design signature, and I think it's a good look. I like this pattern in the grille. I think the Mazda logo itself is a tasteful size, not overwrought and too big like some brands are going. This is really interesting detail right here. Just beneath the headlights, you've got this textured black built into the bumper right here, and I think that's a cool look as well. Down here you also have this interesting flap right here. Now a lot of these are blanked out, but down here they are open, so this is letting some air into the front wheel well. You can see the other side of it right here. Because this is one of the high trims, we do not get 17-inch wheels, but 20-inch aluminum wheels. They are right there and they look lovely. Back here we've got a nice tasteful roof mounted spoiler right here for all that needed extra downforce. And then if you look straight back here, you know, pretty typical SUV look right here, but we do have more of this like ductwork design right here. We do have a true dual exhaust here, and dual exhaust tips that are all real are always nice. Also, it is a CX-50 all-wheel drive, and this is the Skyactiv G turbo engine. Because this is a bigger two-row SUV, we've got a lot of storage space back here, not a third row crowding things up. And you'll notice that's more than 3 feet of storage space going back in here. So you have a lot of room to carry a lot of stuff. And of course, if you fold the seats down, you get even more room. There it is. Like I said, this is bigger than the CX-5, and I currently have this front seat set up to be comfortable for me, and as a result I have a good amount of leg room. Not overly so, but I've got maybe 2-3 inches of space right there, and pleasantly the seat bottom's quite high, so I have a lot of thigh support, and even with the panoramic moonroof I do have just enough headroom. Because this is a higher level model, we do have heated seats in back, and we do have 2 USB ports down here. And if you don't have 3 people back here, you get a center armrest with cup holders. We've got this nice stitching as part of the trim right here, which I like. Of course, we have power windows, power side view mirror adjustment, power locks, those kinds of things. We do have power seat operation, and that is fore aft, seat back, and lumbar support as well. You do get tilt and telescoping steering. It is manually adjusted down here. Pull this flap down and it adjusts that way. You also have seat memory right here, and there's a tailgate lift as well, along with a lot of buttons that do a lot of things right here. Push button start. Look at those beautiful real gauges right there. Tachometer off to the left, speedometer in the middle with a small screen to do some things, and then we've got coolant temp and fuel right there. Because this is a higher level model, we have 10.25 inch widescreen center console touchscreen right there, though even the base model CX-50 does get an 8.8 inch screen right there. And all models come standard with wireless Apple CarPlay and Android Auto. Again, the higher level models get dual zone climate control right there, and you also have heated seats and cooled seats and a heated steering wheel, all good things. Pretty standard looking Prindle right there. We do get an electric parking brake right here, and this My Drive are the drive modes. I'll get to that in just a moment. Here's a command center to control the center console touchscreen. However, if you do have Apple CarPlay or Android Auto, you can actually use it as a touchscreen. You just have to do that in the settings. Open up the lower console. We've got more storage down there, as well as Qi wireless charging right there. Looking up, we've got a few buttons to work with right here, including the privacy panel for the panoramic moonroof. There it is right there, exposing tons of natural California light into the cabin. Okay, drive modes. It's called My Drive. You get 4 drive modes: normal, sport, off-road, and if you install a trailer, instead of sport mode, you get towing mode. So there's 4 driving modes, but only 3 at a time. Okay, back to the drive. Now, normally the 3 different places that I want to make sure I show you how the car drives is how it accelerates, how it handles, and how it feels on the freeway. But because I'm with Mazda on an event, there's a couple more things I can show you. First, let me show you how well this thing drives off-road. Now I'm on the off-road course. I am in off-road driving mode, and here we go. We're going to go up and down some steep hills and get a little bit more undulation to work that ground clearance a little more and see how it feels. Oh, and we have a front view camera, which I'm definitely going to use to give a better sense of where it's going. Yeah, I'm getting moved around by these lumps, but the car is handling everything just fine. Adding a little more throttle. Yeah, it's good. It's impressive how little wheel slip we're getting. We're going up a very deep slope now. Okay, now we're getting some. Oh, now we're stuck. Oh, we got stuck. I had to apply some throttle. There we go. Okay, and then now we're through. So that was fun. We had a little moment of getting stuck there, but we got through it, no problem. All right, so now we're going to go steep downhill. And I definitely need the front view camera for this, so I know where to go. And there we are. Yep, it looks very steep from the driver's seat. It probably doesn't look too steep from the cameras, but you know, you can hear the anti-lock brakes are working, and we've got this uneven road on top of that, so the left side of the car is sitting a little lower than the right. But yeah, no problem. All day easy. And now back to level ground. So this isn't major off-roading. This isn't the Moab, but you got to give respect for what these systems can do to make this off-road driving experience a little easier. Some more undulations in the road here, so working the suspension a little bit more, hitting the jounce bumper a little bit, so working the suspension travel a little bit. Some rocks on the road as well to add a little jumps and jousts to the whole experience. So the point is that if you need to go a little bit off-road to get to a better camping site, or, you know, try to get to a better spot for the sunset or something like that, you've got some options here. You can do it. Yeah, I mean, it's nice to be able to do this in the car, but especially a Mazda where the on-road driving dynamics are so nice, especially for a crossover SUV, I would be much happier doing that stuff. But that's just me. And even though we are talking about a compact two-row SUV, towing is potentially an important feature, and yes, this can tow. The base engine, the naturally aspirated engine, those vehicles can tow 2,000 pounds, which isn't a lot, but you know, it gets you into the level of a snowmobile, a really small boat, jet skis, motocross bikes, really small utility trailer, those kinds of things. And the turbocharged equipped versions can tow up to 3,500 pounds. And that starts getting you into some pretty reasonably sized recreation equipment. So I actually got a chance to try towing with this. Let me show you that. All right, everybody, for the towing test, I'm going to be in a different CX-5 that is already mounted with the trailer. The trailer is this utility trailer right here. It is loaded to its limit of 3,500 pounds. According to Mazda, it is filled with cement bags, so that is an advantage because we have a good low center of gravity in the trailer, and that helps keep things nice and stable. But as you can see, it's a big old box, so we have a lot of air to push around in addition to the weight. So this will be a proper challenge for a four-cylinder compact SUV to have to tow 3,500 pounds and push all that air out of the way in this big utility trailer. Let's see how it goes. Well, it's definitely stiffer. We definitely have a lot less suspension travel in back. You can see that it's squatted down pretty heavily, but it's accelerating just fine. No worries there. It's behaving normally. You're getting a little bit of tug here, but it's generally stable. All right, I'm going to slow down and I'm going to try this in towing mode now. So when you have a trailer attached, sport mode goes away and towing mode appears in its place, and that is what I'm working with. So now I'm in towing mode, and you can see that it more quickly shifts to a lower gear. It holds that lower gear for longer, so that is a noticeable improvement in feel in an acceleration when you have it in towing mode. Right now we're just kind of going down this two-lane highway, easy peasy. 3,500 pound towing is no problem. Okay, braking with the trailer is also no problem. Brakes feel the same. Obviously it doesn't brake quite as quickly, but the brakes still feel fine. We're going through this short little curvy patch to see how the car behaves. So I do have to say, even on this tight, twisty road with a trailer attached, and this is a fully loaded trailer as far as the CX-50 is concerned, you have good feel from the car. You have a good sense of turn in, and you have good turn in response, even though there is 350 pounds on the very back of this car, which is also, of course, lifting up the front of this car. Hats off to Mazda for the way they tune this car and the different, the G-vectoring control they have to just aid in just giving you as much turn in response as you can get, because you're so fundamentally compromised when it comes to turn in response when you're towing a heavy trailer. Okay, we have one less test to do while towing, and that is full throttle acceleration with an extra 3,500 pounds on this car, and I'm going to do it in towing mode to give this thing as much extra help as it can get, and we'll see how it goes. Okay, on the main road, coming to a complete stop. Brake torque. Let's go. So the front end definitely lost traction and lit up the tires, and the traction control had to intervene, but then it got moving, and here we go. Oh man, you can tell it's working harder, but we got up to 60 still pretty well. Yeah, that is stout power, considering that we're towing an extra 3,500 pounds and all the drag and wind and all that on top of everything else. Yeah, respect. This is a 2.5 liter turbocharged 4-cylinder engine, and it still handles this extra weight with no trouble. Mazda has given me a lot of different ways to test their brand new, on the large side, compact SUV that they call the CX-50. And I have to say I've come away largely very impressed with it. It's not perfect. there are limitations to their 2.5-liter turbo 4-cylinder. I do wish that you had a little bit more revs to work with instead of shifting at 5,500 RPM. Now, the engine can technically run to over 6,000 RPM, but the transmission doesn't do that on its own. And you really wouldn't want to do too much of that anyway, because the power does fall off when you start getting to the higher revs. And the 6-speed transmission is very good, but there are faster, smoother transmissions out there. Shifting is never the best part of driving, but modern transmissions have gotten so good and so quick and so clean at shifting that it's not much of a burden, and then you do get a little bit more ratio range out of it. All that considered, what we have here is an SUV that looks great, feels fantastic to drive, delivers solid fuel economy numbers, and has some pretty darn decent luxury appointments as well, and at a price that I think is quite competitive. So if you are at all into driving, you have some of that driver enthusiast in you, and you need a crossover SUV, you have a young family or whatever else, this is such a great choice because you can have some of both worlds this way. You get all the needs and uses you have out of an SUV. As you can see, this one provides plenty of storage space, just as a for instance. And then when you find yourself on a curvy road and you have a little bit of time, you can really enjoy yourself. Even though this isn't the category of car that you usually go out and play with, this goes out and plays, and it plays well. And that's becoming more and more rare and means so much to me. So this is a great, great car. Mazda executed fantastically well with this car. I'm Robin Warner. Thank you for watching. And if you are still watching, I would really, really appreciate it if you like this video and subscribe to my channel. Those things really do help me out quite a lot. Okay, goodbye. All right, let's go. There it is. Turbo